Hi guys, it's Bryant, and on this week's Slam Presents, I speak with Liz Chappie Zoller, a local artist, and in today's episode, we explore how things happening in society and the greater collective consciousness can be channeled through into a work of art. We take a painting from Liz in 2019 and we compare it to a painting in 2020 and see how the mood and energy of things happening around her creative process translated into her work. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and check out more content on our YouTube channel, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter on our website. Alright Liz, what is the name of this painting?
It's called Blue Bucephalus Pearl.
Wow, that is a name. How did you come up with the name?
I have an affinity for blue, and this is a dressage horse and doing a canter pirouette. I think it's a hugely elegant pose, and the horse is massive. The one that I was looking at was massive. So I wanted to do something a little more elaborate. I like to dive into the names and find something that's fitting. Bucephalus was Alexander the Great's favorite war horse, and he was supposed to have a huge head. He was a Thessalian horse, which I don't know anything about that breed. It was a very old breed, and of course the pearl tag, which is what I do, and it fit. So blue Bucephalus Pearl.
Yeah, so you combine like the majesty of a horse with the urban graffiti, right? Can you talk a little bit about your inspiration? Actually, let's start with, when did you paint this picture? Paint this painting?
I want to say it was 2019.
And what inspired you to paint this?
I'm always inspired by the horse, because any of the horses I do are working horses. I know a dressage horse you might not consider a working horse, but it's a very highly trained horse. Often they're eventing horses too. The thing with me about horses is they're so elegant. So it's always the horse that inspires it, but the combination of the urban graffiti, which I think is very high energy and very inspiring to me, because those are artists. We see it as vandalism, but they're artists, and they have so much style and so much like I said, energy, and the design flows. What I like to do is fit that with a really beautiful horse. So I'll start with the horse and then come up with a design for the graffiti. And the reason I like those two is because you don't put them together, yet there's so many crossovers in the traditions of their cultures. So graffiti artists have a hierarchy, just like if you were a working ranch horse, you know, who the cowboy is, who the boss is, how skilled your horse is, how well that comes together as a partnership. So to me, it's just a really interesting contrast and combination, because it makes you look at the diversity and how you might not put something together, but at the same time, there's crossovers, there's overlapping edges, and I think that just speaks to all of us in the fact that we're more alike than different. So I think this is just a really fascinating way for me to put two things together that I really love.
Growing up in the Midwest, did you experience a lot of graffiti, or did you have access to a lot of horses?
I had a horse because I was a 4-H kid, which was fun, completely different. I was, my mom was always super careful about me, so I never did anything fast or exciting. It was just always like little pleasure horse type stuff, you know. And the graffiti, we had sort of a little railroad town, but I wasn't exposed to the graffiti there. It was the graffiti out here, living along the Missouri where there's a railroad track.
So the train cars is where you really picked up a lot.
Yeah, where I all of a sudden noticed myself thinking, oh, I hope I see a train today so I can see some cool graffiti. That's where that started. And I just didn't want to be another woman artist doing horses, because, you know, girls and horses is a thing, and it's kind of tiresome past a certain point. But it was honestly like a muse, just saying, put them together.
Well, it's funny because it's a tag. It's something that's so unique to that graffiti artist, and then you kind of took that and added to the horse. You made something that's more common into your own by using a tag.
And the interesting thing about tags too is I was at a show one time and a kid came in and he said, if you're going to use a graffiti, you better understand the culture. So I started doing kind of a deep dive into the tag, And they're very unique, but and oftentimes people say, well, I don't get it. That doesn't mean anything. Well, if you look at it, there's a very common tag around here, which is HBAK. And the guy's an incredible artist. He makes the letters into monsters. You'll know it if you see
Yeah,
it.
I've seen it.
Yeah, have you seen it? Do you know what the HBAK stands for? Because it's not a word, right?
Yeah.
Hell bore a killer. That's intimidating, you know, and then you want to know his story more, right? But for me with Pearl, it kind of goes back to the studio tagline, which is more grit, more pearl, a riff off of no grit, no pearl. And that goes back to me, the whole idea of turning adversity into advantage. Like you get to choose your attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you said this is a real horse. Are all your paintings based on real horses? And do you go out and look for them? I'm looking for inspiration, I'm going to go out and try and find a horse. How do you find that?
Yes, I look through images, a lot of images online, but they're primarily horses that are called in the muscle, which means they're just very highly engaged in action.
So you find more pictures than like a live horse. You're not going around Montana as much.
I would love to if we have more things going on, but yeah, exactly. What I really love in Montana in the Northwest are the Indian relay races, because those are crazy, those are wild, and you always find good imagery there.
So was he a black horse to begin with, or did you take some liberty on the color? Because he's got like some blues.
He's really dark brown with a big blaze face, but I'll make it what I want it to be, and I'll change the position, and I'll change the feet, whatever it takes for me. The horse is just merely inspiration, but what I always like to do is make sure the edges come, or the feet and the tail and the ears, whatever, always come close to the edge, because to me that's a way of creating tension, and then it makes more interesting negative spaces. So that's very deliberate, but it's about the energy again. Because what I really want people to do is look at these horses and be inspired and understand what the Pearl tag means. So if anything, they're like, I could do it today, you know?
I do feel the energy. I really, you're talking about the energy in this painting, like the pose, very powerful. I like the hair. And then with the tag, I really do sense that energy that you're talking about. Now, with this type of horse, do you think you go on runs where you find like a horse style you like and like you just keep painting, or does it mix up?
This one was unique in that I've never done a dressage horse before, but it was just so elegant. And I have an artist friend in Columbia Falls who helped me with this tag, helped me, I know a tattoo artist called Flash, but just, you know, do all the extra stuff on it. I had the pearl, I had kind of the style where I was going, and he just blew it up for me, which was super cool, and I really wanted to use it. So oftentimes what I want to do is match the style of the tag with how I feel about the horse. And to me, it's just a beautiful horse. And it's got a lot of curves and a lot of energy at the same time. So this sort of thing, you know, flashing off of it. Where if you look at graffiti on trains, it's, like I said, some people say, I can't even read it. Well, look closer. You can, but it's super stylized. And that's what's fun for me. But it's almost always going to be, like I said, a horse in the muscle. So for me, it's working horses, primarily ranch horses, like roping horses, that sort of thing. And with the Indian relay horses, again, they're super high energy. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Okay. Kind of go off the rail a little bit there.
No, doing great. How long does a painting like this take you to create?
I work on a bunch of pieces at one time, so it's hard for me to really tell. I go back to the piece when it's talking to me, when it's telling me what it wants next. I know that sounds weird, but I mean, authors say that. I don't know what about, you know, the story, like I'm gonna let it lead me. I let the piece lead me. So if it's not working, I have to walk away, because I'll overwork it.
That actually leads to a question. So how much of this did you have pre-planned? And how much of this developed on the canvas? You found the horse you wanted,
Yeah.
You knew you wanted a blue color scheme, you were going to incorporate a tag, but how the tag looked, how the horse, like the color scheme just really came to you as you were painting?
I don't want to say I paint intuitively, but I really lose a lot of energy if I sit down and do a pre-sketch and figure everything out. It's just no fun, because then you're copying that. Yeah, you might have worked it out. A lot of people do it on, you know, graphic programs on their iPod, whatever, but iPad. But no, I like to do it. I'll get the outline down and then take it from there. And I only knew I wanted blue after I got further into it. I knew I wanted to do the tag. I didn't know what the background was going to be. I didn't know what the main was going to be. Yeah, it's way more fun that way.
Do you think the canvas helps you choose that inspiration, or is it all just coming from your head?
I don't understand the question. The canvas.
So it's I was really curious. Yeah, the shape, the size. It's something that was like you have this window to tell this story.
Oh,
and
right.
it could be more powerful on this canvas based on the size. So you don't necessarily know what you're starting to do until you sit down and you see you have this space.
Well, that's where the horse's position fits onto the canvas. So it's never going to have a lot of extra space. It's going to be cropped pretty tight. And then that gives me the energy back.
We were talking about the idea of discovering your art as you created it. And I'm a writer, and I always think Stephen King brought up an example where he said, discovering a story is like uncovering a fossil. It's like you have an idea of where you're going, you have a place where you're starting to look for the dig, but it's only in the action of creating that it really comes to life.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's very well said. And I wouldn't have suspected that ahead of time, but to me that's part of the engagement. And it's almost part of the energy coming in that you allow space for it. I think you shut it down if you're too tight.
Yeah, or you have too much expectation. It also ruins some of the fun. You stop enjoying the process of creating because you're so focused on how this has to or is supposed to look. And even it might look good in a small thing, but when you blow it up, all of a sudden you may see some faults because you're so stuck on trying to translate this picture instead of seeing what organically comes from the canvas that you have.
Right, and I think it really interrupts that sense of flow too. And everyone wants to stay in that sense of flow.
So you painted this in 2019. How long do you think for your painting before horses and graffiti became your signature style?
It came together for me in 2016, and it's just been evolving ever since. I didn't have a tag to begin with. I didn't have the understanding of the connection to your tag, and what I would just do is EQUO, sort of a riff on equus, a horse thing. So I've got quite a few pieces out with just that. But, and it kind of goes to the same thing we were just talking about, letting the work evolve. I just kept painting. So I know I'm still evolving my style, and I tend to try to think more in series now, so I don't get too many things flying around at one time. So it's continual for me. 2016, it was funny because I've always been a representational painter, and that's what people can identify with. You know, landscapes are so popular, that sort of thing. When I started this, my little tribe of artists that I was involved with were just like, whoa, where did that come from? But at the same time, it was so scary to set that first piece out. So scary, and for them to be like, whoa, I thought I want more of this. You know, it was kind of crazy. And that very first piece was a piece that I didn't think I would ever let go of. And it turned out that a disabled veteran that comes out here in Montana all the time saw it and liked it and asked about it. And, you know, he's just a young family man. So the price, kept trying to offer him a better price. I wanted to go home to him. And finally, it was just like, this piece needs to go to him. And it was so powerful. It was so powerful. So that sort of thing where you have a connection and you're so tied into it as well, man, that just fills you up.
It came through you and it found its rightful place.
It felt exactly like that's where it meant to be. And the funny thing was, it journeyed into a show after that, and that veteran dedicated the piece to the buddies that were killed in the accident that he was in Afghanistan. And that made it even more powerful because then it had a purpose when it went to that show. He was super thrilled that it, I think went out to Rhode Island for that, and then came back and went to him. But it was just meant to be, and that's way more powerful than me wanting to do a pretty picture, Yeah.
It's so interesting to see how things evolve. Even speaking of your journey, how you did landscapes to you ended up finding your style, or how you painted that painting and then it went on this whole journey after.
Right.
And that's also part of like not having a stuck expectation of what anything is supposed to be, but letting things evolve natural. And I think that's a very important lesson for any artist, especially young artists. Like, it's all right that you don't have a style, you're still finding your voice, but you're only going to do that in the process of creation. So
Yes.
you haven't come, but you love painting, don't stop.
Yes. But to your point, if you have too many expectations or attachments to outcome, I think you shut a lot of that down. Because I think that I'm not terribly religious, but I'm more spiritual, but I do believe in the whole power of the universe thing. I think that picture for you is so much bigger than you can imagine if you go in with a very narrow path defined for yourself.
Is there any last thing you want to say about this painting? And can you say the name one more time?
Blue Bucephalus Pearl. It's interesting. I don't want to say I'm attached to every painting, but I think I'm attached to the journey it took me on at that time. But I'm hoping that, it finds its place in the world too, just like that other one I was talking about. Because I really do think there's a reason that everything is created. And if the artist feels passionate about it, someone else is going to, feel the connection too.
Yeah, your passion is on display. It's like when you create something, you're taking a piece of your soul and putting it out to the world. And somebody's respond equal, like that passion will find its place. The passion that's put out will be received in the same manner.
But I also think that's why it's so important to do your work, not to
Your
do
voice.
what someone else is doing that's popular or whatever. And that takes a lot of digging deep. Because I've seen some work that's similar, but not really, and I don't know those artists. I've just kind of seen it in passing, but I do feel this is fairly unique, and that's scary to me because it's harder to find my market. I'm sure I could sell landscapes more easily, but I think that's
But then when you find that landing spot, you know that this is your spot, and you would be more comfortable because it was your authentic voice that led you to that
exactly.
place.
And I just feel it's important to honor it because it is the authenticity is very important to me.
I guess one last question off this. So you said you painted this in 2019. Do you think there's anything like the collective energy, things that are happening in your life that helped inspire this painting? The energy of the horse, the color scheme, the boldness of it. Do you think something about 2019 helped you create this piece?
Oh, I don't know that it did. This one so much. The next one for certain.
Yeah,
Mostly
actually, when we get to the next one, I have thoughts and that's what inspired this question.
Yeah. No, this one feels more centered and safe to me. It's dark, but I didn't feel dark about it. I love blacks.
No,
They're real rich
it's
to
dark.
me.
I don't feel anything dark about this at all.
Good. Yeah, because it didn't come from a dark place.
No, it feels very powerful. So, Liz, what is the name of this painting?
This one's called Flayed.
And what was the inspiration for the name?
Certainly it looks as though its skin has been taken off, but I don't want it to be a fearful or a gruesome thing. The Flayed to me, and this is I could totally have these. This is a 2020 painting for certain. The inspiration for it, again, of course, it's a horse that's in the muscle. This is my current series for about the last year and a half has been called Native Runners, and it's based on the Pacific Northwest sport of Indian relay racing, and oftentimes those are off-the-track thoroughbreds, and oftentimes they're off the track because they blew up on the track, they didn't have good performance or behavior, or they were injured, that sort of thing. The Native Americans oftentimes would purchase these horses and take like a year and a half, just let them rehab. But these horses were bred to run. So there's something called the chief race, and literally the riders run up behind the horse and leap on them, and then they just take off. And these horses know that that's what's going to happen, and they're ready to run. So this is the starting line, and the horse was just like, let me out of here. It was very much in the muscle, very much in the moment, but it was a powerful moment, and for me, I've just been trying to loosen up, not be so tight about everything. I love the patterns of, these are inspired by historic and traditional 18th and 19th century Navajo weavings, the patterns in the back. But I have an artist friend who's also a veterinarian, and she had given me an anatomy lesson. So I wanted to come in and try that out on the anatomy of the horse, and it turned out being as though it had been skinned. But I was just feeling it apart at that time in my life, and certainly the heart down here too, pretty raw. But
that all
but
came across.
in a good way, not in a horrible way.
Yeah.
Because I usually don't try to use red. Red kind of scares me. But I like it. I like this palette for the purpose of this painting.
It does feel very 2020 to me. There's something about the collective anxiety that you tapped into with this horse. And also, I see, like, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan. The idea of, like, the Hail Mary of death. And not in a bad or gruesome way, like just a powerful way and kind of honoring.
Tell me more about that, because I'm not a Game of Thrones.
Well, I was just like, that's just like, I think the horse that just came. But it was like a prophecy that a horse would ride and that would bring like the plague.
Oh,
And something about this does seem a little bit Four Horsemen to me. But I feel it in a very powerful way. I think it's cool, but it's so different where the other one seemed more bubbly and more alive. This is like on the other side. And that does seem, I said, just in line with 2020.
It's an important piece to me though, because I think rather than feel that it's like terror or anger, it's more just feeling something so deeply.
And you're honoring it. You're not afraid of it. You're putting that raw emotion out there and just showing that these are the times, this is how you feel. And it is very powerful. So what did inspire you to use red?
So the red patterns, the saddle blankets, that sort of thing, the palettes are always going to be somewhat similar, but I'll tweak them. So it was a similar palette, but I just felt like between taking the skin off the horse.
Yeah, you have the heart, you have the blood.
It kind of had to be red, but it had to be, to me this is a very vibrant red. It's a very high energy red. You can read it as angry if you want to, but to me it's more about passion and feeling deeply. So to me it kind of had to be red. It was weird.
I don't read it as angry, but I do feel that passion. And I love your eyes. Your horse's eyes are always so expressive.
They're incredibly expressive. I don't know that I always do them justice, but to me, they're kind of the window. You know, you say that about people, windows to the world type thing. You can walk, anybody that knows anything about horses, you can walk up to a horse and see between its mouth and its ears and its eyes exactly how it's feeling. So it's important to me to have an expressive eye.
Yeah, there's something sad about his look. So, where does this stand in, I guess, your pantheon of personal pieces? Is this one of the pieces you love more, kind of in the middle, towards the end?
I don't want to say, I probably do have favorite pieces and ones that feel more successful to me for the purpose that I had in mind when I started creating them. I hate to say it, but I think all artists do it. I think some of how we feel about a piece is also dependent on the read we get from other people. So I have several big pieces like this, and I enjoy both of them a lot. And a lot of it was about the paint application on top of just, again, using that subject matter. This is what I do. This one just has more emotional meaning to me because it served a purpose of getting that.
Was it therapeutic?
Yeah, it was therapeutic. It was
Having processed certain emotions as it came to life.
Yeah, I'm attached to it, but not in a wow. You know, it's just like I feel it every time I look at it. So that's its purpose, I believe.
Yeah, and like what you said before about some of your art is dependent on how you feel and how others receive it, because nothing's in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. You put in all the effort, and some of it really does need to be recognized. And when you see how somebody lights up, it makes sense that would inspire how you feel. But then other pieces just speak to you based on how it felt when you were painting and what you were able to release through it. So you talk about series. Are you doing a series of these, or is this a one-off?
I have another big painting like this, but to me it's more. It's certainly less visceral than this, but again, it still has the energy and it's a different approach to the paint application. I've been in this mode, like I said, for about a year and a half. What I really love about this combination, and it's different than the piece we just talked about. I love the fact that this is fairly geometric and patterned, and it feels I don't want to say centered or solid, I'm not coming up with the word right now. There's a rhythm to the pattern that's very predictable and staid. And then you've got this crazy horse going in there. You know, so I love the organic form and the energy on top of the pattern. And I think I'm probably gonna be doing similar work for a while. But I do have to, I want to do more with the paint application because I used to work as a technical illustrator and I love this layout. There's something so satisfying about doing these repeating patterns. And like I said, I mean, they're based off of Navajo weavings, but then I make them my own. I change them out according to the composition and what I want to be going on. But it was really fun. You have all these clean edges, line, blah, 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 and then just start smearing that paint. That was just,
well, yeah.
ooh.
What's so fascinating is like you have the horse as your center subject, and in the last painting, the design was in the horse, and on this, the design's behind the horse. But they just give a different feel. And then here you get to incorporate your background now with how you feel now.
And quite a few of the native runners, of course, have their skin on, but they have it's basically war paint. And I love to look into what the meaning of those symbols are. And then the Indian relay race horses often have war paint on them, but there's symbolism to the color. So if I'm going to do anything, it's going to tie into stuff that has meaning beyond just the look of the painting itself. I think that's part of the joy and the reward as an artist to get to talk about your art. You know, either you're going to connect with it or not. That's one thing. But then I love to have a conversation with people and let them know there's deeper meaning to it. It's not just, you know, just the paint. So that's meaningful to me. I don't want to just play with things and not have the respect that it deserves.
Now, both of the paintings you showed me are big, and this one is even bigger. Do you prefer to paint larger paintings, smaller? Where do you?
I love big paintings. It's just hard to store them after a certain point. And you know, I have yet to land the gallery representation that I would love to have. I would love to be in a gallery where big pieces are well displayed. I'm in smaller venues right now, and it's just a completely different feeling to try to do one of these horses in a small scale. So I'm not sure where I'm going with on that.
Yeah, because like the horse is such a majestic thing that there is so much power in the size of the painting that you have this character that's so massive leaping off at you. And like the thing that I love about both pieces, the energy is very different, but both of your pieces of me really have an energy that I feel.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad that you said that this wasn't like a horrifying energy.
No, I think it's a powerful one.
Form.
It is definitely more subdued. It does feel sadder and a little bit more anxious, where the other one to me seem more bubbly. But I think it is really a perfect encapsulation of sometimes, like that was 2019, this is 2020, where you do have a collective energy, whether or not you're always aware of it, that you're tapping into. Yeah. And certain things are going to come across that maybe you didn't even understand your processing, and especially for someone who's a little bit more intuitive, whose painting comes across as they paint. Well, with everything happening around you, you're obviously going to be influenced in some ways. And to me, just the difference between the two pieces really does speak to the time.
It had to come out. I think that's so much the value of art, is our ability to express and connect.
And you appreciating the process of creating. And it's also to think how powerful it is, and we talked about how it's therapeutic, and what came across is like, when you're creating stuff, even if you are enjoying it, you're not necessarily enjoying, it's always bubbly, it's not always happy or exciting, but it's just powerful to create.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I like to figure things out as I go. I like the challenge of, I don't know what it is, channeling the energy and still getting across what it is you knew you wanted to say in the first place. Yeah, the problem solving, I think, is fun.